Welcome back to Meet the Carrallos, and today I'm talking about my podcast, and I'm interviewing, the best couple. It's called Excuse My Grandma. It's bloody hilarious. So just before the pandemic, or when the pandemic started, they moved in together, and it's Gail and her granddaughter, and they are respectively 26 and 80, and it's all the adventures they have together, and it's hilarious. You have to listen. And the grandmother is giving the 26-year-old granddaughter dating advice. So obviously you can see now the difference in sort of generations. It's really interesting to me. Even now, obviously the pandemic has ended and they have still chosen to live together. How that works, how does it work with Kelly's mum? How does it work with the grandmother? And I just love seeing the generational gap and how cool the grandmother is compared to probably the mum. My grandmother's view, if a man didn't come pick me up at the door, then I shouldn't go out with him. If a man doesn't pay, then he's not worth it. If a man isn't banging the door down and sending you flowers every day, then he's the wrong man. And I'm trying to tell, my grandmother at this point that if I waited for all that, I would never ever leave my house. Your grandmother became your dating guru.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. You went on this journey together. So explain exactly what happened, because it just makes me howl.
Okay, so yes, I live in New York City and my grandma's between New York and Palm Beach. And so I went down to Florida just to escape the city, really in the heart of COVID. And
you were working.
Was working remotely from there as well. And I was newly single, so I wanted to be going on dates safely outside and all of that in the beginning, and then eventually not. And then basically every time I would come back, Grandma Gail would want to debrief with me on all my dates. She would be picking out my outfits, saying, "Oh, you're wearing that? Put this on instead," and kind of wanting to know everything about the guys. And although at first I was like, okay, it's a little much, I think that we
started laughing about it.
Yeah, like we saw the humor in all of the generational differences of dating that in the 1950s and 60s was just not a thing. There was no ghosting. There was no sliding into the DMs. So I kind of had to explain a lot of that to her. And in turn, I got a lot of good advice, I would say.
Or advice.
Yeah.
We're not sure how good it was.
Yeah.
I've got my listeners are getting younger and younger, and it really is for everyone just to learn to live their best life. And whether you're dating at 26 or 36, you're really going through the same stuff. But when you decided to move in with your grandmother moved in with you. What did your parents say? What did your friends say? Because most 26-year-olds want to live with another 26-year-old.
Yeah.
This was cool.
Yeah. Well, I think part of it, my parents were also there, but they were in a separate apartment, but they also went down to Florida. And for me, kind of, Caroline, what you were saying with your grandma.
I'm 26 and I live with my grandmother.
Well, not really, because I don't know. I think as soon as I explained to them the situation of us having our social media.
It's ended, right? It's ended, so there's no situation. You chose.
Yes, you're right. There is no forced situation here. I don't know. I haven't, no guys have really thought it was weird.
What does your daughter think of this? Because you must.
She loves it. So there's no jealousy at all in this relationship. She doesn't want any part of being on a podcast, and she loves that Kimmy is doing her dream, which is a reality type of life, where she puts her ideas out and she's talking about things that are important to people her age or even older, and she's very supportive.
But I kind of lost the sort of art of chivalry, and we've become numbers, especially in New York City, so that people get to date 2 or 3 people at once, and sometimes you're dating at such high capacity you've forgotten who you've already been on a date with.
Well, that's true.
Yes.
That's true. That I do see happening.
I see that a lot, and so I'm would you suggest sort of people tackle this right now? How are you, because you're a well brought up girl, you must want to get married at some point, not right today, but in the near future.
It was like a really bad date, because it is hard to completely get the idea of someone and get to know someone from 1 hour of having a drink.
It's impossible. And everybody's nervous. I don't care if somebody's been around the block 400 times. When it's a new date or a new evening out with somebody, you have to feel around. You have to understand where they're coming from, what their job is, what their likes are. Half the time after a first date, you don't even remember their name. So I think you need to give somebody multiple evenings if you like them. If you find them repulsive and that he was nasty or she was nasty,
then obviously
then
but like if after the date you're like, okay, I had a good time, or
exactly.
I like if you want to see them again even a little bit, then I think
you have to give them a chance.
Yeah.
I always say men are like fungus, they grow on you. From what I kind of see from the world, the way it is today, a lot of my single girlfriends are still single, whereas my divorced girlfriends are getting remarried. Because I think,
you know why? Because they're not as fussy.
Yes. And
I believe that. You have to say, all right, so
yeah.
he doesn't play golf too well. That's fine. He can play tennis. I don't care.
There's no hurry. Absolutely no hurry. I'll stress that. But would you look at someone older, younger? How do you feel? Do you have that list?
You mean for a date, like someone I would go out with?
A date with a potential, obviously a date is hopefully eventually long term, right?
Yeah.
So
I think,
and because a lot of people come into their dating life with a list of what they want. There has to be, this religion, you can't have kids, I don't want a divorcee, do you have that list? You were told I would be marrying he was 24 when I met him. I would have laughed in your face. But I think there are exceptions to the rule. And as I said, Sergio, I think because of playing soccer and traveling so much, probably had to grow up quite fast. But you're absolutely right, because I look at other 20, I remember on one of our first or second dates, going out with some of his friends, I almost had a heart attack. I had to leave the dinner table because they literally looked like children and acted like. Right. Then I had to separate it in my head that they were different humans.